You're saying the future wasn't looking bright.
I feel like we need to relax. Okay. Not everything is a hate crime. Some things are just very stupid.
We'll talk about the snowed-in candle, Tony.
I can't excuse this. This looks crazy.
What's going on, fam? This is KR Jones of the Off the Strength podcast, and I am here to tell you to like, listen, subscribe, and if you're feeling freaky, visit offthestrength.com. That's where you can go and get more information on us. That's where we can link, we can build, we can connect, and let's make this thing work.
Don't deny my freedoms. I want to have that like pure black boy joy level of freedom that I see so many of my other friends enjoy, you know, in different constituencies, so to speak. You know what I mean? I want to get to that level one day, son. I don't know if we will ever be able to fully acknowledge and fully embrace the ultimate untapped, unleaded black man joy. I think it's a danger in most situations.
Nah, man. We ain't getting that.
We also got to plan for it when you do have the opportunity to make it happen. I think you need to make a little bit of a wild out allowance. Sometimes people get that first, you know, whatever it is, that first taste of success.
Folks don't know how to save money, you know what I'm saying?
That's why you need to make an allowance for it. You need to have a wild out allowance, because when you don't have any control, you're going to jump out the window and do the most crazy of all things, right? So in my mind, I'm planning already for the next dumb out thing that I'm going to buy. What's the last thing that you got, or what's something on your list of things that you want to get that is completely idiotic purchase that you would make once you got the next little level of wild out allowance for you?
See, my wild out allowance is a little different, but I love skeet shooting. So, like, with the shotgun and a little clay pellet,
yeah, I see where you're going with
that's what I need, just to brush up the aim, you know what I mean? Like, that's the
skeet.
That's the leisure activity that I would, you know, blow the bag on, so to speak.
What's good, everybody? What's good? Welcome back to yet another episode of Off the Strength, where we're giving you the inside look into all things wellness culture. I'm a trainer called Tony, and of course, with me, I have a gentleman of extraordinary league.
KR Jones is in the building.
That's right, folks. We are back. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all type from near and far, you are now in store for a treat, because it's the return of the variety show. That's when we give you all best foot forward. So hopefully you take your best foot forward. You do that two-step, that tango, whatever it is you need to do to make it on through the week with the best goddamn wellness information available.
Yeah.
Brother Jones, I will assure you that the next time I have an opportunity to do a dumbass purchase, okay, I am 200% sure I'm buying a vapor cup. I'm not even going to waste no time. You're going to see me in the house on some craziness, having a whole wine carafe filled with smoke.
The gesticulation.
And I'm just going to be in the window.
The listeners can't see your hand doing right now.
It is just stirring.
It's intense.
Not liquid, it's stirring.
If you don't know what gesticulation is, this is your time to look it up.
Stirring pure vapor. Nectar of the gods, Kyle. I can't wait.
Now, for the layperson out there, can you please elaborate on what this vapor cup is that you're speaking
Well, it's going to come about by means of my week recap, Kyle. So this week, we had a chance to touch down on a little bit of a game night, right, at Butcher's Daughter, hosted by Solange, no less, the weed auntie herself, where I got a chance to check out one of the Jetty extracts. Okay, and Jetty Extracts had this little vapor cup set up that you could have a dab or any kind of cartridge that you would want to have, and it would fill up this little wine glass, like a carafe kind of situation that you could just sip, and it will take you from where you are on ground control, yep, all the way to Mars if you need to go.
Immediately.
I need to have that in my useless purchases at one point in time. It was a great time, but other than that, it was a great event as well. You know, good chance to mix, mingle, have a good little bit of time with some people. I always appreciate and applaud the people on the front line of this cannabis industry creating the actual culture are going to be people that every brand needs, no matter what's going on, because the salt of the earth is inside those rooms when it's a good vibe. What was your take on that, man?
It was definitely a good vibe. I'm just hearkening back to my Jenga skills that should not be in question. Shaky hands or not. Don't let somebody try to bully you out of shaky hands. As long as you complete the mission in Jenga, that's all that matters.
I think we was letting a lot of different things fly on that table, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to move it.
We'll talk about that at another time.
You got to make sure that you lay out all the rules to the game before the game starts, because, you know, cross the pond rules.
Listen.
City side rules, everything was in effect. Not everybody is playing the same games by the same level, you know?
They are not. And to keep respect to all my political connects, I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
There are different games being played, but what's not being played is the environment, man. And it was definitely just lovely, from the music to the food to the drinks. And even this vapor cup that you're speaking of was quite an experience. So,
you know?
I'm happy to continue to still be a pioneer in this canna space, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like we went from playing, rec league to a professional league. It's like, oh wait,
It's getting real.
there's a lane for this, and I've been
There's
doing
businesses
this
here.
for a long time, and each of these spaces needs a good, middleman, so to speak. Like, you need somebody that is going to take what the company's ideas are and who's connected to the community to really fill that gap.
Somebody who knows who to put in the room to make it actually do what it's supposed to do, man. So I definitely had a good time with that. What was your week like, bro?
Man, my week was full of, similar to that game night, I had a lot of events that I went to.
Okay.
I got a chance to pull up on one of my favorite couples, the Black Market Vintage couple.
Shout out to them.
And they released a book, the Black Market Vintage book. I was on CP time, so I got late to the talk, so I missed the gems, but the love was in the room when I was there. It was at the Weeksville Heritage Center, super local, super Brooklyn. I also got a chance to, just recently as last night, step out into a 90th Nikita gin and whiskey celebration.
I don't even know half the words you just said to me.
So Nikia, I might be saying this all wrong again, pardon my ignorance, but this is the Japanese brand, and they had a cocktail event that I attended last night, Tone. Now, you talked about your gesticulation and you know what I'm saying, your little weed cup.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel about a matcha cocktail?
You know what? Matcha could either taste like grass clippings or it could be something that's refreshing. It could go either way.
When I tell you this cocktail elevated my palate, it was amazing. And then it was followed up by I had a nice little gin cocktail afterwards. So I'm mixing the whiskey and the gin, but it was all right.
Now, if you would have just had your pre-hab drink or the enzymes that would have got it,
let them know who sent you.
you would be good to go, man.
Said that wrong too, but go back to the last episode.
We'll make it work, yo.
Yeah.
You know what? I too went to a book signing this week. It was at New Blue of all locations. Now, we've had a bunch of different homies host things at New Blue before. A lot of the arts community, a lot of
You was in the
musicians.
upstairs or the downstairs?
I was in the upstairs looking down at people on the downstairs. You know what I mean?
See what you did.
Kind of feel like I need to do this from here on out in life. That's where I want to be most of the time. I want to be understanding what's going on.
That's a trainer called Tony.
Yes.
Continue.
That's how I feel. Anytime we get in the mix where it's a little too thick in the crowd, I don't necessarily need to be in there, But nonetheless, the book signing event was for a book about uncommon prayers, and it was something that was quite interesting. I really want to tell you, Kyle, that I watched and witnessed the birth of the new Sunday service taking place for a whole different tabernacle, testimony, and church happen right in front of my very eyes in a space that I have been in before, and I was like, damn.
Okay.
When this hits, mark my word, it's going to hit across just like GP was pushing it. This is going to hit on a different type of level. I'll get into that at another time. Another thing that happened this week, Brother Jones, I got a chance to also kick it out as recently of last night for the Robert Glasper and Marsha Ambrosia's concert at Blue Note.
Okay.
I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper into that for our Relax Responsibly. But Kyle, the theme of my week seemed to happen to be something around, sometimes you got to be the bad guy, Kyle.
Okay.
And I want to bring that into our Ask the Professionals this week. See, Kyle, as a black man, I'm always walking a tightrope on how I present myself. I feel like I have to be hyper aware of not only how I feel, but how other people feel about me, knowing that I rarely am going to get the benefit of the doubt in most scenarios. That fine line of being an angry black man and being simply the person that gets shit done was called upon me multiple times during this week, my man. So I'm trying to help myself understand when I need to be assertive and firm without crossing the lines and getting into that old bag of old tricks. So you know how I had to dance this week, Kyle, and I was happy to see that I actually did get some results without having to dive into the old bag of tricks, Kyle. But I would say many of my fellow men might have some issues with that from time to time. So Kyle, I want to ask the professional this week, how can men maintain their authenticity when they have to make an unpopular decision to enforce a strict policy in a professional setting?
Man, first and foremost, thank you for the question. I appreciate your insights
No
as
problem,
always. Bro. On top of that, I see you in your growth, brother.
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time, and younger Tony has definitely evolved from what present day Tony looks like, you know? So I recognize that.
See, other people don't, though.
Yeah, I know. But
they don't know if you're right underneath the surface.
I saw something, so I had to say something,
I appreciate that.
That's
I
the
received
first
that.
point. Now,
Thank
the
you,
second
sir.
point being, just recently I was watching, or actually listening to a podcast between not Daniel Kaluuya, I'm sorry, the guy who created Black Panther. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Ryan Coogler, and the guy who created Get Out.
Yep.
Drawing a blank on his name. Jordan Peele.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, boom. So now we all up to speed. Pardon me. You know, the elevated yoga class still be floating. Now, this conversation really stopped me in my tracks because they asked each other, what does it take to be a good villain?
Okay.
Like, as you're storyboarding and you're building a character, what does it take, or what do you have to write for that villain to be successful? And I want to say Jordan Peele was like, when you realize that the good guy and the bad guy both want the same thing, right? And that was like, damn, it stopped me in my tracks. And of course, the first villain I always go back to is the Joker in Batman, because that just seems to be, you know, blown up the most from my childhood into adulthood through movies and theater and all of that.
Okay.
But they both want Gotham, right? Batman wants to save it. Joker wants to save it too, but he wants it for a completely different reason. And when we have this conversation about the good guy and the bad guy, when you understand on a larger scale that like we do ultimately want the same thing, we just have different ways to go about it, right? And that's where the miscommunication comes into play. So you asked about a skill set that you could offer somebody to develop such decision making. I think it stands. The first part would be to stand firmly in whoever that role is you're going to be. If you're going to be the good guy, then be the good guy. Be the guy that people expect. But if you're going to be the bad guy, you got to stand on that too, right? And it doesn't have to be violent, but it is going to be offensive to some people, right? Like if you want to make an omelet, you're going to have to break some eggs. There's no way around it. You can't be delicate with everything. Some things require force. The level of force that you assert is up to you, but know that there will be consequences for every decision you make.
That is absolutely true. I want to tell you that I don't even have to come into a place and do anything that's outwardly offensive. My mere presence is enough to let people know he is not fucking around at this particular point in time.
For sure.
We are going to have to come up with some resolutions.
But there's power in that, right? And understanding that presence and understanding that, like, you don't always have to take it further than that, than it just being your presence.
It's power in that, but it's also stress in that. And I really want to help men manage the stress that comes along with that. Again, because the stress is not for me. I know that I'm coming here and I'm not going to lose my mind. I ain't going to do nothing crazy. But the emotional toll that it takes for being able to be responsive to how other people perceive you is something that is real clear and present to me. So have you ever had any dances with somebody else seeing you just appearing as you're going to be and you're coming across as the bad guy at work? You know, how do you deal with that stress that comes with that?
It happened to me twice this week, to be specific. Now, the first instance was laundry in my building. I'm not going to name the type of person, but just know that I was a little late to get in my laundry. Somebody took it upon themselves to take it out of the washing machine and into one of the little community bins so that they could use the washer. And I'm like, ho, ho, ho. One thing you don't do is touch my shit, right?
They had your drawers up in the air. They was just shaking them out.
And then you put it in a little community shit where it's like, yo, I want to rewash it now because I don't know where this been. I don't put my shit in here.
Had your banana hammock with some foreign socks all in the same
I'm not
situation.
entertaining none of this nonsense that you're talking about. But that was an instance where like, oh, it's on. I waited to see, because you got to come down in 15 minutes. Your shit going to be done. So I got time today, right? So I waited for this person to show up, and they came in all in a huff. The world is going crazy. They on the phone, on speaker. I genuinely don't like people who talk on speakerphone and just walk outside. Get some headphones or post up somewhere, bro. What are you doing? I don't want to hear your conversation. So I'm already hot twice. Let's just say that younger me I might have just opened the wash machine off principle, off GP. Just, your shit not cleaning now. Let's just put your shit on the floor. That's where you put your stuff at? Because you touched mine. I didn't take it that far, but I could have, right? I was able to have a conversation and, flatten some things out, so to speak. And I think that's the way that you have to approach situations is you got to think about the craziest thing that you would do, and then aim below that and bring it in on a happy medium to get your point across so that we can have a conversation. Now, will she be touching anybody else's stuff moving forward? That's not my decision to make. But I just know that when she see me, she knows what's up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. You got to make sure that you teach people how to treat you at the end of the day. Ultimately, I think that's the thing that I want to land on, even if it does require a little bit of friction sometimes. You got to let people know, hey, this abrasion doesn't necessarily have to mean a bad thing.
No.
It's a learning experience, Kyle. And hopefully you can let people learn how to treat you in the right way that is going to be something that is also uplifting to where you want to go in life, Kyle. Now, that is going to be it from Ask the Professional, and I'm going to take it into a little bit of good. I'm going to take it into a little bit of bad, and I also want to talk about some ugly things this week, Kyle. It's going to be time for this week's episode of Rip from the Headlines, and first out, Kyle, I want to talk about some fitness odd couples. Now, Kyle, last week, you brought to us and the people, the good listeners on your platform, a nice pairing of a nostalgic brand coming into a fast food brand. Right now,
yes.
If we're going to call people out where things are not necessarily aligning the way that we think they are, we also got to be able to give props where props are due. So I cannot knock this because the results are exactly where they are. But Kyle, if I told you that McDonald's teamed up with a fitness app, what's your first reaction outside the gate?
What we doing here?
And what's your first reaction? Give me a reaction.
What we doing here? We ain't selling Happy Meal toys, pies, cookies, and burgers.
So you have accidentally stumbled into a very tricky path, Kyle, because we also talked very recently on this podcast about the McDonald's monopoly game of all things. Now, Kyle, if I told you that McDonald's was directly responsible for 297% uptick in with-use fitness app signups because of the monopoly game, what are your thoughts on this right now to hear that McDonald's is helping more people get access to fitness in a way that they never had before?
The fix is in. I don't need to hear nothing else. Just know the bamboozlement has begun.
The audio-based fitness app With You says its promotion with McDonald's has driven new users to the app in levels that they have never seen before. It has sparked an unlikely fitness regimen with people who would not have previously been working out. So, Kyle, I have to give them props. And this is happening with McDonald's overseas in the UK. Now, Kyle, there has been nearly a 300% increase in people participating on the app, 95% of which people who would never have worked out before. I have to give credit what credit is due. If you wasn't going to work out before and the Monopoly game, little Monopoly man, you trying to win the game, has made you come and start working out via this promotion, I got to give them props. Hands down. I can't knock the hustle. I see what it is. I don't know how long they're going to stick around, but they made it to the event, Colin. That, my friend, is something that I have to celebrate this week.
I'm not celebrating that. I'm sorry. As long as you was talking, I was just thinking about McDonald's isn't even a fast food restaurant to me anymore. It's a goddamn real estate company, Tone.
It's been that, though.
And they got property all over the place. That is the real monopoly. No, yeah. I don't want to help them grease their pockets. No pun intended.
What's your favorite McDonald's meal of all time?
Man, stop it right now.
What is it?
You know I used to work there back in the day.
Yeah, let them know what's your favorite meal of all time. You on the gun right now.
Now, what we used to do was we used to take the buns that you would make like a burger or a chicken sandwich with, and then we would dip them in the fry grease, and then we would cut the hole out of them to make it like a donut, you know what I'm saying? So you put some syrup and some sugar on there back in the day. Man, the off-menu food was the best food there
we go. And this episode of Diabetes has been brought to you in part by KR Jones.
Moving
on.
Just letting you know, man. You want the sugars? You want the shenanigans? I gave you the shenanigans.
I'm not mad at you, bro. I see where you was taking it, man. Concept stores,
okay,
are going to be the biggest boom happening in fitness, and these are where the new community hubs are happening. Kyle, I saw this week an Australian company called MAP. Now, I've never heard of their cycling brand before, but MAP just put out a new store in Seoul, and this Seoul store, Kyle, is called Labs. Now, the Lab stands for Life Around Bikes, and it is designed for forward promotion of all things cycling. They said exclusively, you have to have an unhealthy obsession with sports, art, and coffee to pull up to this, and you will be able to find their exclusive kits, fresh local brews of coffee and of some beers over there. hosted rides, weekly and community events with special guests, really emphasizing inclusivity and group routes tailored to the different skill levels of all different riders. What's your thoughts on hearing this mix of creative culture and sports happening inside of actual pop-up stores now?
I'm thinking, why didn't you lead with that, Tony? Because this sounds like the best kind of situation I could ever think of.
I want to be there, man.
It sounds like the physical manifestation of how my brain works and thinks about biking.
Yeah.
It's like, I want a store. I want people to see the lifestyle that comes with this, and I identify as a two-wheeled pedestrian.
Yeah, and this is why these things are really like starting to pop off the way that they are. Third spaces are the way that most people need to interact with the community going forward. You cannot build it unless you have a place for all these people to actually have fellowship and to house at least some type of admiration around the activity that they're coming together for. All the other brand stuff is just going to be furthering the fact that they actually want to do this anyway, and it's going to be something that gets knocked out of the park. So I don't know when it's coming stateside, but we
might gotta go to that on an adventure.
I'm ready. I'm down for a soul glow. Let me let you know right now.
Let your soul. I ain't got the note. I ain't got it. I ain't even gonna try to do it.
Then, a little bit of a different interpretation, but they still got it over there, man. I think we get some good love over on that side, man. It makes sense to me, Kyle.
You know it.
Speaking of which, next out, I also keep seeing more and more fitness and apparel companies putting out research studies. Okay. This is something that I'm seeing, and I see the tie-in is going to be going further and further into where the dollars and cents are. But ASICS put out a study this week, Kyle, that said desk jobs require activity breaks routinely. Now, ASICS, I'm sure you're familiar, but in case somebody out there in the lay world, is a running company pretty much. Primarily, they're going to be somebody that is focusing on run, walk, shoes, things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure.
So this study focused on how 4 straight hours of being seated at a desk would increase your stress levels by at least 18%, right? People who were able to have an intermittent workout, 15 minutes or less, during that had an increase in their mental state by at least 22 to 25%. So you're having better overall thoughts about what life is, where you're going in the workplace. And this is also coming off of, hey, people at work are stressed out. Homie last week got 11 million to make everybody come together and start to make friends at work again. ASICS is doing this research not because they don't want you to wear ASICS to get up and do some type of movement in the office. What's your thoughts about hearing how these reports are showing that workers are stressed out and activity needs to start finding ways to move into the office space?
I feel like that is the alarm that we keep ringing, and I don't ever see a response to that question. I'm here for the innovation of brands that are doing the research to show you the numbers, to show you the scientific facts of, working is killing you because ultimately you're stressed. And if we don't want to acknowledge stress as the number one or primary culprit behind a lot of the issues you have, then we're already on a different page.
Yeah, that heads down approach to the 9 to 5 is no longer going to be the way to do it. And the innovative brands are leading, which takes me and my next story, Kyle, out to Las Vegas. Now, Las Vegas is a place where a lot of stuff goes down.
Viva La Vegas.
Yeah.
What happens in Vegas?
Tends to not stay in Vegas. It's going to come back home with you. You're going to have to make some explanations. Yep. You're going to have to do a whole lot of...
I seen Mike Tyson in Vegas once. And he was in a convertible, like a drop top. But he was facing the wrong way in the passenger seat.
As Mike should.
Yeah, it was like, who's this dude standing up? And that's Mike Tyson.
Mike could do whatever he wants, That is a national treasure. We do not question Mike.
Never. I was just acknowledging his presence in Vegas when I saw him.
Well, who else was present this week in Vegas, Kyle, was Gymshark. Now, Gymshark was out in Vegas this week for the Mr. Olympia. Now, I can't tell you that I follow bodybuilding as much as I used to back in the day.
Yeah, you been getting that chest pump in?
Listen, there's a lot of people out there that still do hold this as a cherished sport of sorts, Kyle. When I saw that Gymshark, who's been rolling out a pretty solid PR campaign for people who are locked in the gym exclusively, they put out a fitness truck that actually had the ability for you to do a personal record lift on the actual truck. And if you did a personal record lift, you can get some exclusive merch. So just the fact that all of these people in bodybuilding are driving around and you can see this truck that you could take a picture of. And if you took a picture, you could do a lift and get some equipment out of there. I got to tell you, innovative brands coming from overseas, this is the type of interactions that are outpacing what you're seeing in most of our traditional brands and really getting that cult following for just the one sport. They're not going to be doing everything for everybody, but Gymshark is really trying to win gyms. What's your feeling on this little bit of innovation happening, fitness right on the road, my friend?
I'm here for it. I think about PR as a term. It's very gym heavy. A lot of people don't have personal records because they're not pushing themselves harder. And meeting people where they are is a huge part of closing that gap of getting people to where you want them to ultimately go and the betterment of their life. So if you got it in you and you in Vegas and you see the truck, hit that QR code, get your one rep max in, so to speak, get you some new threads. I'm here for it.
Hey, man, shout out to them for doing what they are doing. Last innovation that I saw on the fitness side also happened to come from the West Coast. Now, Kyle, I want to let you know that everybody trying to put a new spin on the run clubs is taking it into a direction that I never saw coming. So we talked about Travis Scott formally starting his own run club. He did that out in Shea Stadium, or what used to be Shea Stadium. My fault. I'm showing my age right now.
Citi Field?
Citi Field.
There you go.
Go Mets. Everybody's still in there. I'm just an 86 dude. Last time they won was the last time I dropped down. So you do the math however you need to do it, right? Diplo now is starting to come out, and he wants to start his own run club. And I'm talking about Grammy-winning DJ Diplo started a run club inspired by his experiences that he had after running the Miami Half Marathon, where he was filled with this level of euphoria that he used to find inside the club. It gave him a experience that he never had quite sober, and he wanted to find a way to tie this with his love of music. So now Diplo reimagined the run scene. He came out with his own 5K run, and Kyle, let me let you know, on his debut event, entry for a 5K, which is not a very long run. This entry for the 5K,
it's like 3.5, something like that.
3.2 miles, Kyle. 3.2? And this 3.2 mile race had a $116 entry fee that came with a family-friendly after party with a mini music festival, also a recovery lounge, and all different types of fun that you can have with Diplo himself, including food and beverages that was around there. So Kyle, it is blending fitness with this level of kind of experience that you would only see at a festival or like those big parties that DJs used to come in with. I'm telling you, more and more, the artists started. Now we're getting the DJs into it. We've had the actors into it. I've seen so many people start to make that gradual transition into what the wellness world is going to look like. How do you feel about Diplo throwing these fitness run parties, my man?
I'm here for the idea of it. I want to see an evolution and expansion on this into different markets, because the crowd that he had was very monolithic, unfortunately. I'm sorry to say it, but
it's Diplo's crowd.
It's Diplo's crowd exclusively. I want to see a Kendrick Lamar calisthenic workout.
That'd be badass.
With like a challenge, like how they have the Urban Mutters or whatever those courses are. Like, what does it look like to integrate that type of movement and then stretch it out into an obstacle course, right? Like, same type of thing. You're charging people for fun and they get to stay for the concert, the music afterwards. You know what I mean? So
yeah, we got to get the Jim Joneses on it. We got to get Fab on it. We got to get Styles P on it. We got to get Method Man on it.
We can't have too many.
We got to get Jada on it.
Everybody get their own block or their own setup.
D-block!
You get what I'm saying?
Full workout.
Everywhere we go, right? But,
yeah.
But what does that look like expanded upon, right? And those are the type of ways that I see this art and wellness integrating into one another, and it's happening before our eyes. I want to see it the way I see it, so I feel like it got to happen.
So the last thing I want to talk about is going to be the integration part, which I saw an integration that I know is going to be, again, colliding courses with that whole push towards wellness being the dominant narrative in both the sports and entertainment world. When alcohol brands start to move into the booze-free category, Kyle, you have to start to pay attention as to what's going to come next. So, Kyle, this last week alone, Moet Hennessy started investing into a non-alcoholic wine label. The owners of Absolute bought a non-alcoholic tequila brand. And the owners of Guinness actually bought Ritual's Zero Proof, the maker of a non-alcoholic cocktail and spirits brand, right? So you're talking about some of the biggest alcohol providers now starting to realize that people in Gen Z, 45% of Gen Zers are staying sober and they do not want to touch anything that's related to alcohol at all. I'm going to tell you a fair amount of those people are going to show up to a Diplo show in some way, shape, or form.
For sure.
Now, when they are there, the alternative beverage market that I keep talking about is going to be something that they're going to be very interested in, Kyle, and there has been a growth of about 30% in that sector in 2023 into 2024. You're going to see more of these non-alcoholic brands start to move into wellness specifically. This is the last part that I'm going to bring down. What does it mean when you start to see the brands that used to sell vice now start to sell you a little bit of wellness, Kyle?
A bad influence had the world drinking gold bottles, Tony. That's where my mind goes. Do your research on that quote. But I'm thinking about what this means on a larger scale. You've got big business that are pivoting from their marquee players to get different nuance activations off for a younger demographic that has money to spend. When I think about Gen Z and the boomers, Gen X, whatever you want to call the people prior, I'm thinking about how the cigarette market was and how cigarettes stopped and then alcohol picked up and now the alcohol market is stopping, right?
Yeah, and a lot of those cigarette companies moved into other things. They moved into other vices.
It's the same game.
So a lot of the Marlboro people are people that you would find in Pepsi, are people that you would find in Coca-Cola, are people that you would find in Lay's potato chip. A lot of those marketers just moved over to a different thing to sell you.
100%.
So paying attention to the full span of time and understanding all the things that I have governance over in wellness, I can't tell you, Kyle, that I am not going to be associated with a non-alcoholic brand. Because when big money does it, nobody has issue with it.
Hey.
So that's going to be it from my side of this week, from the headlines. Man, what you see outside in these fitness streets.
The first thing that came to mind was a good brother by the name of Brandon Haynes.
Okay, B. Haynes.
Haynes. Go ahead.
Hometown own, man. I just got to shout out and send love to that brother, man.
Now, I was introduced to this brother because of you. He
Yes.
also happens to be at the center of all of the cinematography that is of me.
Okay.
Came from that brother.
I like it.
We had a little Jordan Brand commercial that I thought was going to put me on the moon. It did not, but it was dope, though.
Here we
you
go.
know what I'm saying? It was how many people you know got their own short film.
Hey, man. Salute them.
I did that with him. Now, I bring this brother up because it's rare that you get to see the growth in your friends. Last week we talked about friends in business, but these are friends that have different art forms that they've grown in and you've seen over time. And I've had this fly on the wall view of this brother, and I remember him telling me about something he was filming, and he had signed an NDA and he wasn't trying to give up the name. I'm like, oh, come on, bro. Like, just, what's up, man?
If you know Brandon, that is pure Brandon, though.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I can't talk about it, but all you're doing is talking about it. But just leaving out the main parts. Like, you doing a whole lot of redacted kind of conversation. Like, all right, bro. So my heart was happy when I seen that it was a Renee Montgomery documentary. And if you don't know who Renee Montgomery is, she is a former WNBA player that saw it fit to step off the court and step into the boardroom because she felt like her voice and her passion would be needed there more than it would be on the court.
Yeah.
Now, that's a powerful step. Like, how many players reach the league, that's their dream to reach the league, realize that, hey, you know what? I need to be in the CEO office. I need to be in the C-suite. I need to be in ownership because I don't see that type of representation around me.
Yeah.
And it's been playing out well for her, and she is a co-owner of the Atlanta Dream. And now there is a film to talk about how she got from point A to point B, and it was shot by the homie B. Haynes.
In partnership with Undisputed, too. Let's talk about, he's not coming up there.
The Netflix starting five, she all up over that talking about LeBron. Like, she is a force to be reckoned with. Not only as she was on the court, she was a part of that UConn team when UConn was winning every year in women's college basketball, but you know.
Yeah, man. So I like that the homies is coming up and they working with the big homies. You know, they working out there with the LeBrons and the Mav Carters and all of that. And all I got to say is, yo, B, I could easily be casted into anything you got coming up next, you know? The next look, just know.
Release the Organic Thug documentary, damn it.
Just know where it could go, bro.
Sliding out of that, we're going to talk about something else that I came across. Now, Brother Tone, earlier you talked about the Asics brand that caught your eye with movements that they made. A brand that caught my eye was Solomon. Now, for those who aren't up on Solomon, or could you give a brief little insert about how you feel about Solomon?
I'm going to be honest with you. It's not really a brand that I was super aware of. I do know that they're in the outdoor sports, but they started to sneak over when outdoor stuff became fashionable. That's when I started seeing more and more Solomon.
Utilitarian wear, if you will.
I got that.
Right. So Solomon being a French outdoor sporting brand with roots that date back to 1945. Now, the way I see this through my lens is it's a changing of the guard. Like, when I grew up and I'm thinking about sneakers and I'm thinking about clothing and streetwear, it always came down to the luxury form. That's the best way to think about it. I think about something like Jabot jeans. I don't even recognize those other two French words in the beginning because they was just Jabot jeans.
It was Marcus Franciscan.
Nobody knows what it was. The time it took me
plus
to
G.
Google Jabot jeans because I couldn't pronounce the first two French words was crazy. Like, we didn't even recognize that as the brand, right? But you had to have those jeans growing up. It was pivotal to, you know, your lifestyle, and hopefully you didn't get robbed depending on where you was at.
Nah, getting robbed for your jeans is crazy.
You'd be surprised.
Gassed out, literally.
Literally, you know. But to bring it back to this Solomon story, I'm thinking about this was the new French hotness, right? The footwear. And I haven't seen too many people venture into like the clothing and other things outside of just the sneakers because they have an assortment of things that they offer. But I do think the right people need to be, again, in that in-between space, right? Because you then have these brands with these lofty goals, and then they have the community of people that they want to reach. You always going to need that middleman, right?
Especially when the brand is a French brand. It's not rooted in what the new spot is going to be, right?
And you're opening up in a place like Soho, which is arguably the capital hub for creative brands, and it can either make or break you.
I think it's an opportunity, just like I talked about with the lab opening up in Seoul. Like, you can make that into some fly stuff, but you need the right people to be around there. So have at it, sir.
That's all. I was just bringing attention to this brick and mortar pop-up that they have in Soho. And, you know, it's on Spring Street. It's a lot of other things around there. And I'm like, that's all. I just had a little,
Yeah.
I wonder.
Well, if y'all need some people to put together some good outdoor activities, you can get at the good people at Off the Strength. I will definitely help people frolic, help people ruck, help people hike, and all of the things in between.
You hush your dirty mouth, Tony. Don't you talk about rucking.
I'll put on some Solomons, and I'll take them all over the place, wherever you need to go.
But I really do think it should highlight, and ultimately the people in that space should highlight that outdoor experience, right? Like our connection to life outside of the city, especially as city folks. Like, you need that nature, and New York has a lot of it. You just got to put yourself in it.
We can do some urban spelunking, Solomon. Just come over here with the good folks at Over the Strength. You know, we got to let people know.
Speaking of urban spelunking, Tony, it's funny how we just keep landing in the same space, man. I want to bring your attention to a sea ice marathon that hit my timeline, brother. This took place in Sweden. Now, let the good people know what it is that you're looking at.
It looks like a bunch of Scandinavians doing some Scandinavian activities, my friend. I can't knock them for doing what they need to do.
Would you, in fact, run on sea ice? Now, sea being a body of water that you would identify as such, frozen, and you're running on top of it.
Nah, you would never even catch me out here. It's like, I wouldn't be nowhere near that.
This does not interest you if it came with a nice set of meatballs at the end and,
first of all, don't
some
you ever talk to
IKEA
me
furniture?
Like Nah, listen, the Nordics got to get their Nordic on, man. I'm not going to knock them for their culture. You know, it looks like some cold weather people are doing some cold weather activities. It's not in my, forte. You know, I'm not going to knock them for doing what they got to do, though.
All right, man. I'm going to leave that right where it is. Let the Nordics Nordic.
Get their Nordic on. Nordic track. That's what they're doing. They're making Nordic tracks.
It's going to bring me to my last story today, and that's the ugly story, Tony. Now, when I talked about this, know that this is just what I saw on my timeline.
Okay.
Now, this was reported by Adweek, and there were two brands in particular that had to recall and stop some of the ads that they were pushing.
Okay.
One of those brands was being Heinz, known for their ketchup, relish, or whatever else they
Condiments.
offer.
I got
Condiments, if you will. And the second brand being Bath and Body Works.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to Heinz ketchup, they had two different ads in particular. One that was very much minstrel stroll-esque, if you will.
Okay.
The other being highlighting an absentee dad in a family photo from a black family.
So there's got to be a couple things. First and foremost, I cannot at all excuse whatever this haha to be me Heinz commercial is, because this just looks crazy.
Yes.
It's like there's never been a person that's if somebody put that much ketchup on a sandwich and then
it was around your lips like lipstick,
took a bite out of it and they was just chilling like this, arrest that person immediately.
And you're black with locks? This is not
a real thing. I can't even believe that this is right or actual. The next one, I feel like sometimes we be looking for some hate crimes and they just not in spaces that they need to be.
If it's a family photo and you got both your parents and I just got one of mine, where my dad at?
The balance in the photo.
What are you trying to tell me?
I don't know what's going on here, right?
It's a wedding.
It's a wedding with Heinz ketchup, which means
With
this
in-laws.
is devastating wedding to start. It's like a lot of people getting mad at the wrong thing. It's like the fact that the
If you got Heinz at your wedding,
was on the table. It's a centerpiece to your wedding.
it's a low tier.
Just understand why this person was going through some rough stuff way before the dad was in or out of that
So you're
picture.
saying the future wasn't looking bright?
I feel like we need to relax. Not
Okay.
everything is a hate crime. Some things are just very stupid.
We'll talk about the snowed-in candle, Tony.
I can't excuse this. This looks crazy.
Now, the snowed-in candle that Tony refuses to accept is indeed, remember paper mache snowflakes that you would make in school? You would take the construction paper, cut little holes in them, get geometric shaped items to make a snowflake.
Yeah.
Imagine those pointy, white shaped Ku Klux Klan hoods, Tony. I can't get it out no way other than that. Like, that's what it resembles. It doesn't look good.
I'm be honest with you. We need to stop making people so fragile in this country. Because if you saw this and your whole world shut down over
It's more
the
like, I'm
snowflake-
going to get a check. You know what I'm
the
saying?
snowflakes and the ketchup shut your whole world down, we are not operating in the same space.
It's more of a tone deaf, you don't have the right people in the room situation.
Yeah, stop buying their shit. That's the point. We don't have to do this. We don't have to keep going back and forth. I don't want some bullshit apology
If you're not
from
going
somebody
to use
that don't care about me.
Heinz, what kind of ketchup would you use,
There's
Tony?
a bunch of other
Are you
types of
gonna
ketchup out there.
make your own from scratch like a Nora Smith on TikTok?
No, I ain't
Okay.
doing none of that. First of all, that's not even a real person either. All this shit is fake, Kyle.
She's real. She's made hot dogs from scratch right in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
For her family. And a Capri Sun, as she said it.
Nah, I'm not doing this.
All right, you got it. But we're going to slide out of that because that's clearly raised your blood pressure for ad week. And that's why it was ugly, Tony. And we're going to leave that right where it is. We're going to, just drift on away and little. See that right there? That's how we get into the Raising the Bar segment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all type from near and far, you're now in store to raise your bar. Brother Tone.
Yes, sir.
I often sit and I reminisce on my life.
Okay.
Every day is the movie that's playing in my head. I'm always trying to figure out my next move. Just recently, I found out my primal animal, so to speak.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Primal zodiac sign, if you will. That is a conversation for another day. But what it allowed me to reach was this point of thinking about pace.
Okay.
And the pace of my life. Now, as we age, our senses of time is more significant because we value time when it's wasted. I'm thinking about like interactions that could have been avoided, things that make my blood pressure boil if you weak, or just general vibes I don't want to be around.
Okay.
I'm old enough to make a decision to remove myself from such spaces, and I do my best to never waste any time. But I often think about how I used to romanticize the fast pace that I adapted to with New York, right? When people who don't live in New York, you really don't have a sense of how fast the city moves, from traffic to subways to just the overall urgency that everyone tends to move with in New York, because you're 10 minutes late, you trying to conquer the world, and you feel like your dream is the strongest dream of everybody else in the city.
Got you.
That pretty much sums it up, right? Now, it's a hit the ground running pace. The city never sleeps. The grind never stops. All gas, no brakes. In addition to even biking around the city, earlier we just talked about the lab. We talked about me identifying as a two-wheel pedestrian. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really does become ingratiated in your life, and you start to adapt that as a identifying trait, as a character, attribute, so to speak. It's like, yo, I'm quick. I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm running through these rings. You know what I'm saying? That was an 86 reference for you, Tony.
Yeah.
Now, all of that is cool and dandy until you can't do it, right? And lately, again, I've been literally physically hurt for about the past 2 years. I've just been in full recovery, rebuilding myself from the ground up. I can't keep that pace no more. And mentally, I no longer wanted to hustle in that same way, right? I had to shift. The shift took place as often as you should. If you're not flipping your world upside down and reimagining, revisiting every single thing that you thought was true on the regular, you're probably not living the life that you should be. An unexamined life is a life that ain't worth living, as a good brother trainer called Tony once said. Now, I began reimagining this current state, which gave birth to this idea that I can achieve more by not doing less, just at a different pace. Right now, small, incremental, intentional steps into a direction that I want to go and at a pace that's sustainable for me to maintain, right? You can't win a race when you're looking left or right. And we all know what happens in the horror movie when you're running and then you look back behind you, you're dead, right? There ain't no way around it. That's just how it goes, right? When you have the commitment to stay in your own lane while maintaining this pace, that should suffice, right? Like, you running your own race. I'm not trying to compete with you. I'm not trying to be better than you. If I outshine you, that's just what was supposed to happen. You get what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't a goal of mine. That just kind of happened as it did, right? And if you're not successful in this commitment that you're doing, then I feel like you then have something to build on foundationally. It's like, I put this plan in place. I met these markers. I checked these boxes. None of this is working. Cool. Let me increase this. Let me try that. That's when you get your creativity out, right? That's when you can then add the adjustments that are only for you. Nobody else can, run the same play that's your play. As we talk about, that play from last episode. Go back and pick up these gems I'll be putting down. You know what I'm saying? But the better you get, the harder the work becomes, right? And I'm thinking about an interview I saw with Kenny the Jet Smith. Now, you remember Kenny the Jet?
Yeah, for sure.
Championship with the Houston Rockets, NBA player, Hall of Fame, TV analyst, all that. He was talking about the difference in champions and people that aren't champions, Tom. And he said champions aren't extraordinary. They just do the ordinary extra.
Yeah.
Right? They just do everything that they can within their power above and beyond to be the champion, but it's still the regular stuff. It's showing up early. It's leaving late. It's studying film. It's paying attention to the details of your craft hugely. And that cost in itself is different for everyone. For some people, that's a life or death cost. That's a life or death price. Other people, it's just not worth it, right? So that choice ultimately will yield the separation. Now, Brother Tone, as I laid all that out, I'm here to ask you about what pace means to you and what advice could you give somebody about finding their own pace off the strength?
Today, pace means to me the ability to get adjusted to the fact that most of the stuff that I want to do is never going to happen on my time. I think
wait, expand on that, because I feel like there's power in that.
So the level of work that I would put in, the amount of times that I would show up, the way in which I would sacrifice, the things that I have an affinity for, and the goals that I set are solely mine, and they are in the domain of my mind and my expectation. If I come into a situation and I expect everybody else to move on that pace, I'm only setting myself up for some level of disappointment. That is primarily the biggest lesson that I've taken into these later chapters in life. Now, that being said, I think pace is really the throttling of, for me, what the emotion of a situation could be, the ambition of whatever your task is, and the motivation. So motivation, when it's at its highest, everybody can show up and they're going to feel great about doing whatever it is that they want to do. January 1, how many people were motivated to come into the gym? Everybody. Compared to January 28th. It's like, not a lot of people is going to have that
Cole's
same
birthday, actually.
And he's a quitter. I ain't putting that on Cole.
He quit that rap beef. See? I'm sorry.
But
that's a fact, though.
If motivation is the only thing that you're relying on to get you over the line, realize why you're always going to fall short. Because there's plenty of days that I don't feel like doing half the shit that I'm going to do. But I will throttle my pace to make sure that it stays on track. Pace is always going to be a good indicator of where motion is. You can't have a good assessment of how fast you're doing something if you're not moving at all, right? So really trying to keep in mind that as long as I am moving the meter somewhat, it might even be incremental. It might seem like a slow, painstaking crawl. As long as I feel like that progression is happening, I'm okay with allowing the pace to be something that ultimately isn't in my control to the extent that I want it to be. And the day that it is, I have all the faculties to know that when I can put my pedal to the metal, so to speak, I'm ready to take off and make up for any time that I feel might have been lost in that effort.
Man, I felt like that was an amazing alliteration of pace, because it made me think about the throttling that you just talked about, right? Like, I've been driving lately, so I'm in the whip. I'm constantly trying to stay below 30 because them cameras
red light
is
cams
out.
is getting you, bro.
Not even just red light, speeding cameras. You put it in, you go on 32 into 25, you might get a little something in the mail waiting for you, right?
So Easy Adams right there for you. Aha!
Exactly. But when I really think about the throttling in a metaphorical sense of, like, sometimes you got to be on that gas, sometimes you got to be on the brake, but you have to know what you need to be doing, when you need to be doing it, while monitoring everything that's around you, right? It's almost like your place in space. You really have to be responsible for not only your output, but how that's going to affect everything else around you.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a flow, there's a traffic flow, there's a direction, there's rules and laws that you have to abide by to be out on the road, so to speak. But you also have to get to your destination one way or the other. And you can do it efficiently, or you can, take the scenic route if you want. Either way, it's going to cost you some time.
Yeah. I'm less inclined to do the scenic route for most things today.
Yeah.
And I say that as I'm taking the scenic route in new territory. If it's something that I've already done, I'm not trying to waste time in reestablishing or reconstituting something that I know I'm coming into it with my level of understanding and appreciation for what needs to get done to make the task happen. If I'm coming into a brand new scenario, I'm okay with throttling my patience, my time, my energy, and my effort to learn what I need to learn, to then be able to execute at the rate and speed that I want to execute at.
Yeah.
So there's a whole host of things that have to come in to play when really trying to take that into appreciation. It's mostly like, all right, maybe I got to be patient. This patient thing is going to have to be good up until a certain point. Now, patience, we at the end of the road, although we've come
to the end.
I can't let go. Hey, listen, check this out. I'm going to be here at 9:32.
Still I can't
Don't let nobody else come inside here between now and then.
It's unnatural. Yeah, no, I get it.
Let people know where you stand at the time that they need to accelerate, and you'll be surprised. Sometimes they pick up the pace a little bit too.
Man, talk about picking up the pace. You talked about going at the end of the road. A callback I want to talk about briefly. Did you know One More, the group by Wanye from Boyz II Men?
They should have separated themselves from him a long time ago.
They have now hit puberty again, so
No.
their voices at like similar to like how the Jackson 5 was, and then they grew into the adult version of the Jackson 5, or
Yeah.
at least older teens, like they're in that same space. Be on the lookout for One More and their hit single coming out.
This is some form of abuse. I'm just trying to let you know. I don't know what it is exactly. I don't know how to translate that to the digital age, but this is when you take the identities from not one, but several.
It's four. It's four of them. They're all named Wanye.
Yeah, you have taken four men's identities. You've made them lost.
That's Wanye the 5th to the 1st.
Yeah, you have committed them to the sunken place in life, because they're going to keep chasing this thing that they never going to catch.
That's Junior.
Nobody needs that.
We're going to slide out of that, and we're going to relax responsibly. Now, Relax Responsibly is a segment that is brought in part to you by me. That's
Okay.
KR Jones, a frequency movement plug. Now, what I want to tell you is that I have this yoga class that I teach, Tone, and it happens every Saturday at Frequency Movement at 11 a.m. In this space, we elevate our movement patterns, we explore different shapes, and we synchronize our breath with that same movement.
Okay.
I give you a pre-roll, you listen to some vibes. From there, we keep it pushing, So I want you to visit me Saturdays at 11 a.m., Frequency Movement.
There we go, my man. Okay, talk to the people about how you were relaxing responsibly this week, my man.
Man, we're going to bring it right back to this weed party that we was at.
Okay.
All right, that's where we're going to start off first. Now, we want to talk about your shuffling first and foremost.
You are a hater. Because you had the same shuffle struggles.
I did in the beginning. I will admit that my first shuffle wasn't the one that was my last shuffle. I'll put it like that. My last shuffle was pretty clean. Could have been on Vegas, give you cards, whatever you need. You, on the other hand, sir, it was a bad night for you, But it was a great night to have that soulful laugh, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you have to be around the right people in order to get one of them deep laughs where like you're not even breathing no more. You laughing so hard. Like the air has left your body and you can't even fathom the humor in which has taken place in front of you. And I think that I didn't realize how much I needed that laugh until it happened.
Yeah, man.
Because life be lifing, bro. And you are pent up because you don't have a release. If you're lucky, you got a partner in which y'all can share and talk about each other's day. We talked about the loneliness epidemic. If you ain't got a partner, you talking to that weak-ass, dying-ass plant in your crib or whatever animal you have that's tired of your shit anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's the only venting you have. But
yeah,
when you get that soul laugh, man, it is replenishing to the heart. You know what I'm saying? It just takes a layer of ice off that bad boy like the Grinch did when he stole Christmas.
2 sizes too small. Now you ready to go.
It grew 10 times in size. Pause. Partner left. You know what I'm saying? How was you relaxing, Tom?
Shout out to the Weed Auntie Solange out there for creating your relaxation situation, man. I got to go back to, again, last night. Robert Glasper,
That's
had
a good time.
Robtober Fest at Blue Note. That's when he just is going to take over the whole month.
I seen he had a little brother there like maybe a week ago, or they coming up or something.
So many different people have graced the stage with him. And I had to take a step back and realize how many times I've actually seen Robert Glasper perform in I don't know how many years, but it's not a short handful of times.
Yeah.
I was even a production assistant to one of the things that he had. He did a concert out in Harlem. Shout out to Kurt Work, who put me in a room that I definitely wasn't supposed to be in, but I was sure
you were supposed to be
doing
there.
what I needed to do. Just to see the level of artistry that he displays is something that is truly, it's aspirational at the best sense. It's like, yo, you are having pure fun up here. You are playing whatever you felt like playing.
That's where the best music comes
Rocking out, jam band style, but could pull in inflections from songs that everybody knows in the room.
Who was his guest again?
Marcia Ambrosius.
From Flowetry.
From Flowetry. Now, when she
Say Yes.
When she got on the mic, I'm going to tell you, it went from high praise for Robert to like, okay, we are in a whole different stratosphere.
She got one of them voices. And that accent.
When I tell you she acted out the whole of Coming to America, like, what's the guy singing?
She Is Your Queen?
No. I'm talking about going back to the, I forgot what the preacher's name was.
Oh, man.
I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but she did the whole preacher sing, like, sexual chocolate. She sung the whole thing. I believe the children, like, making voices.
For sure. That was Eddie Murphy's finest.
Yes.
You know?
Her voice could do so many different things that it is an instrument on its own right. And
sexual chocolate.
Yeah, she did all the ad-libs.
That boy good.
All of the preacher things and locked that voice in and then just went into like some angelic voice.
That's what she got, bro.
And took it to a whole different spot.
Yeah.
Man, I was not only relaxing, but my battery was completely recharged with all the artistic impressions that I needed for the night to come in and be like, yo, all right, whatever I got next, I got to make sure I put all my art to the forefront.
Before you go, see, I just got to give you this anecdote that you just made me reflect on.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, Aunt Lucille, you know, God bless the dead, that's my grandmother's sister. She was a music mogul, so to speak. You know, she had her own gospel group, the Holy Vessels. I used to work the soundboard for them when we would go church to church and perform. Nonetheless, I accompanied her at this music conference in Atlanta. This was early 2000s. This was my first time seeing Marcia Ambrose perform because she was one of the performers there for this conference. This was flip phone era. And you know what had just been released that they were trying to push heavy into the streets?
Nah.
Rap snacks.
Nah.
This is when they were like, yo, we're going to put these artists on bags of chips, and they were handing them out there like in the conference. And it was just like, yo, that's how long ago like the world used to be. You get what I'm saying? Like, fam, I am a seasoned vet when it comes to this music stuff.
She started breaking it down. She wrote her first songs that got charted at 16.
Yeah.
She's been writing stuff.
Say Yes?
She was writing stuff for people like Michael Jackson and Ronald Isley early on in the 20s. That's crazy, bro. They got into a full bag, and it was an artistic expression
that still falls under that Soulquarian bag, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
And that neo soul era. So
absolutely.
I do think that was some of the best music to come out of that time in life, so to speak, of the 2000s. We get all the, you know, the ratchet shit, you know, the tip drill and all of that shit from Nelly. But
Marshall was giving it up some craziness too. If you get into them lyrics,
it was a different level though. It was hidden, and if you knew, like, oh, you one of them soulful under the bush types. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
that's gonna be it from my side of how I was relaxing. You know, Kyle, I'm gonna need you to talk to the good people about what you're hoping for after you get out of the bushes, wherever you was at. What are you hoping for this week coming up?
Once you're out the bush, Tone.
Yeah.
I hope you find your wings.
Okay, there we go.
Right. No, man, on the real, I hope that your wings equate to your pace in life, right? Like, Find Your Wings is one of them Tyler songs that really, like, man, we talking about musicality of an artist. It's one of my favorites to go back to, but I think it's essential to elevation, right?
Okay.
Like, you don't know how far you can go until you find that pace, until you jump out and fly and take it to where it need to go.
That's what's up, man. Kyle, I'm gonna keep it simple and plain, bro. I'm hopeful.
Okay.
That I don't have to go into my old bag of tricks again
Put
this
some
week.
hands on somebody.
I'm hopeful that I don't have to go into that bag. I don't even have to tell people what's in that bag.
No, for sure.
But they do know that bag ain't never too far away. And I'm hopeful that they understand. That's the art of diplomacy. Credible threat. It's right there at the top surface.
That's it. Stand on it.
Kyle, if they
Guaranteed.
needed to find us at the good folks at Off the Strength, Kyle, where do they need to tap in?
Man, they can visit Instagram and see us at offthestrength_. Or if you're in the greatest city in the world, that is New York City, sometimes you can come on down to the Rockefeller Center, and that's where you can see us record live and direct at Newsstand Studios on the block of the Rock, at the bottom of the Rock, Brother Tone. If you can't make it in, you could always visit online, again on Instagram at Rockefeller Center or Twitter at Rock Center NYC.
That's right. And of course, we are brought to you in part by the good brother Bryant Perkins and I Did That Productions. Once again, it's the Wolverine and the Flamingo giving you this week's dose of wellness. Peace and much love to y'all out there. Until next time, we'll see you soon. That's my spirit animal right there.
Peace.
I see it.
Yeah. You Wolverines don't even make noises.
Flamingos is out there, though. They be peacocking too much. What's good, everybody? I'm a trainer called Tony, and I am here from the infamous Off the Strength podcast, asking you today, listeners, viewers, wherever you may be, to please like, listen, and subscribe to our podcast. This is how we're going to continue to be able to deliver you the best goddamn wellness information out here. So if you want to keep hearing this and you want us to keep growing, you are a part of this show just as much as anything else. So please go to offthestrength.com. Make sure you check out our blogs. Make sure you check us out on IG. And if you're hearing this voice and you didn't hit that subscribe button, know that Kyle is going to come looking for you.
You got that right.